we will try to avoid confrontation because confrontation has what we call a negative connotation, right? Every word in the English language, and there are about 500,000 of them, every word has a denotation and a connotation. Write this down, it's useful. The denotation is the dictionary definition, right? If you looked it up in the dictionary, that's the denotation. But the connotation is what everybody thinks the word means. And the connotation of the word confrontation, I'm going to ask you, and you can signal with your thumb up or thumb down. By the way, in the reactions tray, if you have it in your Zoom interface, there's a yellow thumb. You see it in my frame right now? Press it just for practice, just so I know you know where it is. And if you can't find that, you can always just give me the thumbs up. But how many of you would agree? Thank you very much. Thank you. I see a screen name, Anna P. I suggest that's a code name. Jeff, thank you. Christy, appreciate you. Margaret. Thumbs up if you think the word confrontation has a negative connotation. Thumbs up it. And it's okay if you don't, but a lot of people think confrontation is a bad thing. I want to avoid it, right? How about this? The word boss. Does the word boss have a negative or a positive connotation? How many think boss has a positive connotation? Thumbs up? Okay. How many think boss has a negative connotation? It's interesting, isn't it, how people think of this? Now compare the word boss to the word coach. How many think the word coach has a positive connotation? Thumbs up. Almost everybody. So, you know, if you had a boss at work, let's say boss slash coach, would you rather think of that person as a coach because that's user friendly? Or do you prefer to think of that person as a boss, which is a negative connotation? And all the bosses slash coaches on this call have a chance to position themselves as either a boss or a coach. One of them is more beneficial to the relationship. Same thing if you're a parent. Thumbs up if you have kids at home, little ones. A lot of you, yeah. So how does your child view you? Do they view you as the bad cop or the good cop? Or both? A coach or a boss? Maybe both. Thank you, Margaret. So this is what we're doing today. We're thinking about confrontation as a good thing because check it out, everybody. Confrontation actually helps solve the problem. So when you avoid the confrontation, and by the way, I think avoiding for an hour to think about it can be really good. Sometimes avoiding the problem for 24 hours, the phrase is sleep on it, is a good idea. But to avoid the problem, and by the way, I think avoiding the problem long term might be a good strategy because some problems solve themselves. Thumbs up if one of your problems has always ever solved itself. I'm pretty sure that's true. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Aaron. So what I'm saying to you is in general, though, it's good to have a confrontation skill set so that you can go to work on the problem and solve it now. And this is especially true if you're dealing in a customer service modality. Is it Anne? Is that how you say your first name, Anne? I see Anna P on the... You're on mute. That's okay. You could type it in the chat. There you
Yes.
are.
Yes, it is.
It's Anne.
It's Anne Marie, but there's two Anne Maries, so we go by different names. So Anne Intimate. There
Okay.
you go. You got a little history on me. Welcome to me. Bye.
So what we're saying is that if you have this confrontation skill set, you can deal with the problem in customer service format. You can deal with it. Say you're having a little scuffle with somebody in your department, right? It can be somebody up the org chart. It can be somebody that's underneath you on the org chart. It could be a total stranger on the street. You have a little confrontation. When you have communication skills, you never lose your temper. You always know just what to say. And we're going to talk about that today. And I'm happy to help with any specific issues that somebody wants help on. So two techniques so far. One is that communication is definitely the answer. You want to beef up your communication skills. It's so easy to blame the other person. Don't bother doing that. That's useless. Instead, say, how can I communicate better to help solve this problem? Because you have complete control over yourself and you have no control over the other person, right? The second technique is confrontation is good, Don't shy away from it. Get used to it and confront in a way that's productive, right? Technique number 3 involves a spectrum that I want to show you right now. I want you to recreate this model in your notes. And this is a spectrum of platforms and ways that you can solve problems. So you'll see that the arrow goes in both directions because you can be really, really super passive about something or life, and you can be super, super aggressive about something, or you could be right in the middle, which is an assertive style. And I'm going to make the case today that although there are people on this call that land in all 3 areas of this spectrum, you are better off in the middle of this spectrum, especially if you want to solve problems, especially if you want to be a better communicator. Here are the definitions. You might want to jot these down. Somebody can keystroke them into chat. When you're an aggressive person, you solve problems by taking advantage of others. You're pushing people around, or you're mildly abusive to them. That is not a good way to go. When you're super passive about things, you're not solving problems at all. You're avoiding the confrontation. And when you're assertive, you're solving problems by not taking advantage of others. No one ever feels like you are aggressive when you are in fact assertive about solving the problem. And there's nothing wrong with being assertive. No one will ever fault you for this. But they will fault you if you're aggressive. That's when you get complaints and people reporting you and that sort of thing. And people won't report you when you're passive, but they won't think of you as particularly successful when it comes to problem solving or communicating. So you want to be right in the middle of this spectrum, that assertiveness is the way to go. Technique number 4 of the 5 techniques that we're kind of using as our basis of discussion today is that everyone needs more self-esteem. Everyone needs a better self-concept. Now, I'm not talking about ego here and arrogance. And in fact, what we know about arrogant people and people who brag a lot is they are often insecure. They often have a low level of self-esteem. So they're trying to overcompensate by telling you how great they are. That's interesting, isn't it? And so I know this is true about not having enough self-esteem. And I'm going to tell you a quick story, probably advertised I was going to be doing some storytelling today, and that's truth in advertising. When I was 6 years old, and some of you may have children this age, so it's a good little experiment to do with them tonight. When I was 6 years old, my father approached me on a Sunday afternoon, and when I was little, my mom and dad called me Mike, right? I go by Michael today, but they call me Mike. And my dad said to me, "Hey, Mike," he said, "come on over here. I want to ask you a question." And I, waddled my 6-year-old body over to my dad, and my dad said, "Hey, Mike, who is the most important person in the world?" And I was only 6, I probably didn't even understand the depth of this question. But I wanted to please my father, and I wanted to give him an answer that would make him happy, and I didn't think about it very long, and I just blurted out. I said, "You are, Dad." My dad said, "Well, that's a good answer, son, but I want you to think about that. I'm going to ask you again in another few seconds." And he did. Who is the most important person in the whole world? And this time I had had some more time to think about the question, and I'm 6, and I answered again. This time I said, "Mommy." And he shook his head no again, and he said, "Well, it's another good answer, son, but think about it some more. Think about it. Think about it. I'll ask you again, who is the most important person in the whole world?" Now, even my 6-year-old brain, I now figured out Daddy's not the answer, and maybe Mommy might not be the answer. And then it finally came to me, and I looked my father in the eye, and I said, "I am Daddy." And he said, "That's right." And that day, I didn't really understand that my father was laying the cornerstone for raising his first son with a high level of self-esteem, a good self-concept, somebody who had the confidence later on in life to walk into a room of 400 people, never having met any of them, and stand on a stage and present content as if I had known these people forever. That's an interesting skill set. And So when I say everybody could have more self-esteem, I feel that way about myself today. I am constantly working on my self-esteem. How I can feel better about walking into a room and knowing that I have everything it takes to solve a problem. I have everything I need to get through the day. And it's a wonderful feeling. Do I falter sometimes? Absolutely. Have I faltered during COVID? I've had some low days. We're just wondering where all this is going. One of them was when the supply chain failed in the United States and you couldn't buy pork at the grocery store. There wasn't any. And I'm like, oh my God, where is this going? Is this the end of civilization? I'm not even eat that much pork. But I'm like, is this the end of civilization? What's that old REM song, The End of the World as We Know It, right? And it only lasted a couple weeks. But every time I walk by the meat counter, I'm like, do they have pork yet? Is everything going to be okay? It was just a weird time. And by the way, we may run into similar issues before this is over. So just know that you have everything that you need to get through what you need to get through. And tip number 5, strategy number 5 is this idea is that change, right? You here versus you here comes about because you practice some new techniques. So that's what we're going to ask you to do today is practice some new techniques that will get you to a better place. And that's why we want you to write these things down. That's why we want you to review the TXT file that Matt's going to send everybody later on. You may want to watch the video again. You may want to share the video with the person you live with so they start to see how this can be better for them. So the strategies never end. So just in quick review, communication is the solution to all of your problems. Better communication, not the way you communicate now. Better communication is the solution to almost all of your problems. Number 2, confrontation is good. Not bad, good. Number 3, assertiveness is the way to be. Not aggressive, not passive, but assertive. Number 4, no one has enough self-esteem. And then number 5, that change is all about practice and making yourself better. That's what we're trying to communicate to you today.